Let's proceed with the KDW, where the maestro himself, Dr. Badrul Khan, is going to orchestrate this week's fabulous edition of the digital world. KDW, let's take a look.
Welcome to KDW, Khan's Digital World on Fox 5 Plus Washington, D.C. I'm Badrul Khan. Today we have an exciting episode on new normal in education. We have a guest. She is our co-host. Her name is Dr. Judith Bailey.
So, now we've reached that point of managing our daily life in more than a year of the COVID pandemic. And I think we have experienced so many changes that we don't often realize how much impact their consequences are having on us. How do you describe what we've been through?
Oh, thank you. That's a wonderful question. Well, folks, as the pandemic swept across the country, devastating our economy, health, finances, travel, and employment, people from all walks of life in our society felt the devastating effects of COVID-19. It has heightened uncertainty in all aspects of our lives. Think about this. Let's imagine that you have been living in this space since February 2020, and you decided to come back to the Earth in March 2021. What do you see on Earth that you did not see before? You see people are wearing masks. You see people avoiding groups. You see children who are not in school. People are working from home and are not traveling. People are not going out of routine things like shopping or entertainment or even medical care. You see lots of news and messages about testing and vaccinations and public health. And you would probably say, what happened? This is how COVID-19 changed the world. Even when the pandemic is over, we'll be going back to living like before? I don't think so.
So for us as learning professionals, what does the pandemic mean?
Well, the pandemic poses the most dangerous threat in history of education. It has undoubtedly left a lasting impression on our future generations. It has changed the way we learn and live. And children in school, their data are starting to show that what over a year of disruption has meant. Learning has been lost. Educational institutions have adopted somewhat, but it has been a struggle. No one was prepared.
So how do we take the lessons from the pandemic so far?
Being unable to cater to the needs of students is unacceptable. That's a failure. We have to understand the systemic change in all sectors of our society that have implications for education. We have to change our mindset and truly understand the necessary paradigm shift. We have to have strategies for facing uncertainty so that we continue to engage in innovative and meaningful learning.
So is there now or will there be a new normal?
Oh yes, even system in our society, every system in our society, including government, manufacturing, the service industries, healthcare, the financial sector, none of them can do business the same way as before. We, of course, educational institutions can no longer provide their services the way they used to do. Education must be flexible, more targeted toward people's needs. Our social systems are increasingly adopting technologies to deliver services. During the pandemic, we relied on digital transformation to manage our daily activities. We used apps to make vaccine appointments. We bought groceries on the internet. We made video calls with our doctors. Education has no choice but to do the same. Pandemic showed us the virtual learning is here. It is an option that isn't going away. We must rely on more blended and hybrid learning approaches. We must acknowledge that the new normal is technology enabled. Educational institutions must be more prepared for large scale change and to use technology to manage change.
So with all that going on, what recommendations do you have for leaders in education?
Well, if people cannot fully adjust to these changes, they will be left behind. They will be harmed by lack of access to education. Education system are caught unprepared, flat-footed. We cannot afford that anymore. We have to have contingency plans. We have to have effective alternatives to the traditional model. Leaders in education have a lot to do. In the USA, school system nationwide reported that attendance and academic achievements have embarrassingly plummeted during online learning. Many students do not have the basic infrastructure at home for effective remote learning environment. Access to 5G internet, up-to-date laptops with adequate processing power, or even a quiet learning space cannot be taken for granted. And teachers have to be prepared, adapting materials, reshaping activities, expecting for students, motivating students. These are crucial skills that are different outside the classroom. Supporting students online is a different reality. Leaders also need to focus on mental health. Many students reported experiencing stress or anxiety, disappointment or sadness, or felt lonely and isolated during this pandemic. It is a lot, but these are the challenges I think leaders in education should focus on.
So how do they go about that, and how do we support them and help them?
We can mitigate the consequences of the pandemic on our educational system. We need to act with urgency and focus. We know remote learning faces many challenges. Effective remote learning and blended learning encompass an array of factors beyond what teachers and students do across the computer screen. Identifying and understanding those changes and addressing them appropriately means looking at equitable solution for all students, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, ethnic background, socioeconomic status, or disability. Focusing on find the right technologies, the right teaching techniques, and using them well is the key. We as citizens of the digital world should be problem solvers, innovators. We must help address these unmet challenges and need. Now is the time to innovate and address the education crisis.